I will speak a little bit more about climate change with a different voice, different emphasis, different approach. I'd like to preface my comments to let you know how I think about things. I believe that we can take any area of concern, be it race, be it economic inequality, be it climate change, and we can use it as a lens to look at a range of interrelated systems or conditions. Climate change, to me, includes the obvious things like warming temperatures, warming oceans, sea level rise, habitat loss, increasingly severe storms, and much, much more. As Tejapala pointed out, those things are already happening. Climate change also includes, in my mind, the strains we experience more and more every year on our social systems, on our economic systems, the changes in industry and government, the questions that arise about how we use our industries. What are our governments looking at? What are they prioritizing? Policies, all of this, in my mind, is part of the issue of climate change. I have three themes I'm going to speak about: Pratityasamutpada and the 6 elements, renunciation, and a few practical suggestions. The first, Pratityasamutpada, we know as conditioned arising. No thing exists on its own. Everything arises on the basis of countless conditions, all arising simultaneously. I'd love to go into a different kind of conversation and talk about the other side of that, which is the inherent existence of all things. But in these talks, we're discussing the practical reality, which cannot be ignored. In the context of climate change, I want to draw attention to the 6 elements as a way of talking about conditions: earth, water, fire, air, space, consciousness. We are made up of those. Those elements within us are not separate from those same elements out there. Of course, that inside-outside doesn't exist. It's a complete myth. While I'm talking and through the day, this is my first suggestion. I invite you to look around. I'm not going to take time in our talk to do it together, which I'd love to. Where's the earth here now? Where's water? Where's the fire at the moment? Well, obviously. Where's space? Where's the air and consciousness? Just keep looking around, looking around. I take the changes and the stresses of the world around us as a call to understand conditionality in a more thorough way. Conditions do not exist to serve us, the human beings. We exist, speaking quite metaphorically here, my Dharma teacher mind is getting technical on me, and perhaps your minds are getting technical as well. We have to speak quite openly and metaphorically here. We exist as part of the entire web. Every action we take changes the atmosphere. I mean atmosphere in a literal sense, such as when I drive my car or fly on an airplane, the particle emissions enter the atmosphere and change its chemistry. I also mean the atmosphere created by our thoughts and views. These become the interpersonal, social, and political environment in which we and others live and die. and which have impacts on what we call loosely the natural environment. Are the stresses on our planet and in our lives greater than ever before? We don't know. But they are great enough. Let us wake up to our participation in the total picture. Start thinking, as a matter of habit, about elements as mutually arising wonders in which we participate, not as objects to exploit for our own ideas and projects. Find where the tendency to appropriate from our environment hides in our minds. Informally, we tend to speak about conditions in a particular way. We say, what are the conditions that will support my practice? What conditions can I put in place that will support the success of this project? And so on. We speak as though conditions out there exist to serve us and our values. We prioritize our own agenda, our own interests. As a matter of habit, we are human-centered. We tend to live as though in a bubble, isolated in our own life situation. I certainly do. I live in a very, very small town, semi-rural. There's not that many people around. Chandradasa lives, 8 miles away from me. We hardly ever see each other. So I get into my little bubble. I work with my immediate surroundings and the people closest to me. But we're not isolated. Even if I think I'm in this bubble, even if I sort of seem to be, that's a myth. It's not true. The edges of my world touch yours. The next town, the next country, the edges of my world touch the ocean, the air. It can't but do that contact. When we as an order come together like this on a convention or in big meetings, maybe we feel this connection, this interconnectedness more than we usually do, more than when we're at home. I think it would serve us and our planet well if we could feel the relatedness of all elements all the time. Earth, water, fire, air, space, consciousness. Your bones, my bones, the bones of this building, the fossil fuel bones. How much fossil fuel is in this room? The synthetic materials, the candles, the asphalt outside, plastic in the chairs, etc. Ask ourselves, how do I get in touch with the elements all the time, not just when I'm doing 6-element practice? For me, it's quiet time in wild places. It's meditation outdoors, with enough deep listening time. I can let my heart be open to everything I see around me. I choose not to live in cities. They're always a bit of a shock to me. But when I've had enough of this time with the elements, directly experiencing not me and them, but elements, I can take in the cities, all kinds of people, the news, everything. How do you get in touch with the elements? How do you feel, how can you touch the reality of conditioned co-arising, relatedness? Maybe, this is just a thought, an experiment, could we think of each element as a Kalyana Mitra, as a dear and beautiful friend? Another area to think about, renunciation, choices. I'd like to mention some ways to think of renunciation that may help us modify our patterns of consumption, or rather overconsumption. Renunciation is about enjoying and appreciating what we have. It is contentment and mudita. It's tranquility in the absence of greed, the absence of anxiety, even fear. Renunciation is sufficiency. It's knowing what is truly a need. Renunciation is the practice of simplicity. Renunciation gives us the heart space to experience metta more readily. It's getting ourselves out of the way. It's vital for our Dharma practice, and it may be crucial for our planet. Now, a very practical look at lifestyle. The changes in the climate all around the world, based on the carbon issues, combined with population growth, will make it increasingly difficult to live as we now do. Let's look briefly at how many of us do live. With intensive, this by the way, this kind of reflection and these few things I'm going to name are the same for me as being in touch with the elements. So as I continue to speak, see if you can pull those together for yourself. We live with intensive use of energy for food production. There's very high energy use for our social interactions. There's a lot of travel to keep our order vital, to do business, to visit friends. This is high energy use. High energy use for our communication systems. The internet runs on a lot of energy. Industry. How much in your home is handmade of really basic natural materials? How much is based on fossil fuel materials? How much of what you use on a daily basis has come from a mass manufacturing company? Things to incorporate into our noticing all the time so that we can start making some choices. So what do we do? At the individual level, we do need to act, and in some of my suggestions there will be individual actions. We can act at the level of Sangha. We can act at the level of organizations and government. I'm echoing my colleague Tejapala. We can act to change views and be responsible in how we use the natural world. We are the elements, remember? Act where you can feel effective on the individual level at the very least, and act on wider and broader levels if you feel you have access, energy, and the skills to do so. Here are some ideas. Lead an organic life. Make sure all your gardening efforts are organic. Don't say it's only a little slug pellet in my garden. Draw the line. Buy or get everything organic wherever you can. Research food production from an environmental point of view and make wise eating choices. Walk more, drive less. Go outdoors and get muddy. Get connected to the elements. As you scan your home and your consumption, think about reducing. We already do, perhaps. Think about it some more. Invest in things that are highly energy efficient. Make things. Build community and Sangha. Improve your communication skills. Talk about sustainability with everyone. Develop collectives. Develop healthy responses to stressors of all kinds. Work for environmental organizations. Work with your local and national governments and businesses, large and small, to change policies. These big movers can leverage beneficial change on scales that we as single persons cannot. Don't think of yourself in an isolated way where the environment is concerned. We are not isolated. Every drop matters. In conclusion, acting to address climate change in all its manifestations is not separate from Dharma practice. It is a response to the cries of the world like any other. Principles like renunciation, like befriending the elements, work on all elements, on all levels, from what appliances to use to contemplation of pratitya-samutpada. Act, be conscious. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings, so may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace.